You're standing in the Rub al Khali at noon. The ground temperature under your feet is pushing 170 F, hot enough to blister skin through a shoe sole in under a minute. There is no shade for miles, no water in sight. Your body is losing close to a liter of sweat every hour just standing still, and you have maybe 3 days before this landscape kills you. People didn't just pass through this place. They lived here. For thousands of years, entire families raised children, buried elders, and built civilizations in the harshest environment on the planet, one of the driest, hottest deserts on Earth, where summer highs regularly clear 122 F. You live somewhere with a tap. Turn a handle and clean water appears, instantly. Endlessly. Ancient desert Arabs didn't have that luxury for most of human history. Every drop had to be found, hauled, or coaxed out of ground that looked to any outsider completely dead. So how did they do it? How did people not just survive the Arabian Desert, but stay there, generation after generation, without it killing them first? The obvious answer is toughness. The real answer is engineering, and it's stranger than most people assume. Start underground. In the region of Al Ain, archaeologist Dr. Walid Yassin al-Tikriti spent years tracing a channel system called the Falaj, a network of tunnels dug by hand to carry groundwater from higher water tables down to villages, using nothing but gravity and precise slope. His research dated the oldest confirmed Falaj in the region to roughly 1000 BC. That predates the Roman aqueduct by centuries. Some of these tunnels stretch for kilometers underground, dug entirely by hand, in rock, in the dark, with no margin for a miscalculated grade. One channel still running in Oman today, Falaj Deris, measures nearly 8,000 meters end to end. Engineers had to sink vertical shafts every few dozen meters just to haul spoil out and keep air moving underground, a ventilation system built 3,000 years before anyone had a word for civil engineering. This wasn't a lucky discovery of a spring. That's the part people get wrong. This was inherited, refined, deliberately taught knowledge. The kind that only survives if it gets passed from one generation of diggers to the next without a single fatal error along the way. So what does that tell you? This wasn't improvisation. This was inherited, refined, taught knowledge, the kind that takes centuries to perfect and dies out in a single generation if nobody writes it down or passes it on. Here's where it gets strange. Everyone assumes the camel was just a tough desert animal, built to shrug off heat and go without water out of sheer stubbornness. The truth is stranger, and it's chemical, not mystical. Physiologist Knut Schmidt-Nielsen published research in 1956, showing that a camel's body temperature doesn't stay locked at one number the way yours does. It swings across the day, sometimes by as much as 6°C in a dehydrated animal, climbing through the hottest daylight hours and dropping back down overnight. That fluctuation isn't a flaw in the system. It is the system. Your body starts sweating the second you're uncomfortable, spending water to chase a fixed internal number. A camel lets its own core heat climb instead, banking that heat rather than paying water to cancel it out immediately. It settles the bill later, after dark, when the temperature drops and heat can radiate away for free. That single trick, tolerating your own rising temperature instead of fighting it every hour of the day, was the quiet mechanical secret behind the entire caravan economy that stitched Arabia to the rest of the ancient trading world. But animals were only half the equation. Humans still had to survive the same sun with nothing but cloth and rope. Look at the black tent, Beit al-Sha'ar, house of hair, woven from goat and camel fiber by Bedouin women working ground looms passed down through families. On paper, it sounds like the worst possible color choice for a desert. Black should trap heat, not block it. Instead, field research measuring these tents found interior temperatures running 8 to 10 degrees cooler than the air just outside the fabric, even under conditions pushing 50 degrees Celsius. 3 things are happening at once. The dense outer weave blocks direct solar radiation before it ever reaches skin. The coarse gaps between fibers let hot air vent upward and escape, the way heat rises out of a chimney. And when rain does come, those same fibers swell shut, turning a breathable summer shelter into a sealed winter one overnight. No moving parts. No mechanism. Just goat hair, engineered by trial and error across centuries into a passive climate control system. So what changed the outcome, generation after generation? It wasn't one invention. It was 3 systems working together: engineered water, tolerant animals, and self-cooling shelter, stacked on top of each other so that no single failure point could kill you on its own. There's a persistent myth that Bedouin survival came down to instinct, a kind of mystical desert sixth sense passed down through blood, impossible to teach an outsider. Survival researchers and desert guides have pushed back on that framing for decades. What actually kept people alive looked less like magic and more like a memorized map. One Bedouin man from Dubai, interviewed decades later about growing up in the desert, described tracking wells the way you'd track gas stations on a long, familiar highway, dozens of known points, spaced across brutal terrain, refilled and reconfirmed at every crossing so a route was never truly improvised. But what happened when the known wells still weren't enough? There was one more trick, and it pulled water out of nothing. Bedouin travelers would dig up stones before sunrise and simply wait, because a bare stone radiates heat faster than the sand around it, cooling down first and becoming the coldest surface for miles. Cold surfaces are exactly where airborne moisture condenses. In some desert regions, according to research from Israeli scientist Shmuel Duvdevani, that overnight condensation can add up to the equivalent of 25 inches of rainfall a year in trapped moisture, water harvested directly off cold rock, collected before sunrise, gone the moment real heat returned. None of this was luck. Every layer of it, the tunnels, the tents, the timing, the animals bred to tolerate their own rising heat, was knowledge built specifically for this one unforgiving stretch of earth, refined by people who had no margin for a wrong guess. So picture that noon heat again, the blistering ground, the empty horizon, the 3 days you'd have left out there with nothing. Except it was never nothing. Underneath that sand was a tunnel somebody's ancestors dug by hand 2,000 years ago. Over that person's head was a tent designed to be 10 degrees cooler than the air trying to kill them. Beside them was an animal that had learned to outweight the sun instead of fight it. The desert never got softer. The people who lived there just got harder to kill, not because they endured the environment, but because they out-engineered it, one water channel and 1 degree of body heat at a time. You have a faucet. They had a plan for every single day the world might not give them water. The real survival skill was never toughness. It was refusing to leave anything to chance.